breathing in and breathing out, and simply connecting with the essence of the inner self, the essence of the calm, content, peaceful self. A part of the self that loves to sit and witness the sunrise. A part of the self that enjoys sitting in silence. The part of the self that knows words are not always necessary. Keeping the eyes closed. I'll share with you a poem entitled Hidden Until Blooming. I have said goodbye. I have said hello. I have lived a while between. There are ways in which I died, and there are ways I thrived. There are ways I have been born again, only to say goodbye again, and again, and again. And I have learned, and I have learned. Life is a spectrum of colors, harmonizing and contrasting. Quite a rigid undertaking. One is never sure whether they are dying, living, or being born. Why any perfected spirit would choose to come here is beyond my human mind to understand. I guess it's the only amusement park in town. Or maybe Groupon had a coupon. But then there are those sacred moments, hidden until blooming, within the diversity of this mystery, shades, tints, and tones, radiance awaiting its own birthing. Once we get past the fear of it all, once we move beyond the anger, once the experience is more important than a coupon. Once the cramping ceases and the time arrives to travel through to the other side, our eyes will meet a sun gently rising, a luminous horizon forming, full of colors so vibrant yet softly welcoming. It all somehow reminds us that the arriving, the staying, and the departing empowers our appreciation, our awareness, our journey to the truth. Hidden until blooming. I'm going to flutter the eyes gently open. Retreat attendees, you're officially released from your silence. Wow. How many things were hidden within this weekend that the silence gave the opportunity to blossom? Maybe there were tears or curiosity or frustration or joy or moments of irritation and anger, simplicity, contentment, experience. Maybe there were moments of deep devotion where you knew the truth of connection to yourself and all of the healing that that brings. What was hidden that you then allowed to be revealed, that you allowed to blossom? From the moment we're born in this life, we begin to hide. From the moment we're born, we begin the process of hiding, the process of becoming a stranger to ourselves, the process of also forgetting. And from the moment we're born, we also begin the process of revelation, of revealing, of blossoming, and of remembering. It's tiring to be so caught up in two very diametrically opposed processes. Always hiding, always revealing, always closing our eyes, always opening our eyes, always running in search of stillness. And we wonder why we're not happy. We wonder why we can't find and keep happiness. We need more moments of silence, more moments of stillness, more moments of remembering, and fewer moments of forgetting. But the world that we live in is more conducive to the forgetting than the remembering. The little irritations that happen every day, the little challenges, the little insults. They call us to curl up into a ball and pull the blanket over our head until some future springtime occurs and it's safe to come out again. But that's not conducive to a spiritual life. Constantly hiding is not conducive to a spiritual life. To live a spiritual life, we need to be bold and brave and throw the covers off our head and step out of the bed or out of the curled up ball and into the world of being. Not the material world that's full of distractions and desires and wants and aversions and preferences, but the world of brilliance, the world of possibility, the world of potential, the world of creativity and expression, the world where someone needs you to be peaceful for them, the world where someone needs you to be kind, to support them, the world where your smile and your patience and your goodness matter, because it not only supports you, but it also supports others. It supports the path of all who wish to experience healing on any level in this life. Put your guns away. We don't need more guns. Put your insults away and put your fear away. And show up in a way that requires a real courage and a real true bravery. A way that is not easy. To be the silent one is to be the powerful one. There is so much power in silence. And in this instance, I'm not just talking about keeping the mouth closed. I'm talking about a certain kind of inner stillness that knows the truth and abides in that truth no matter what. No matter what. The kind of silence that doesn't need to be shouted out from the rooftops, because presence is its own evidence. And the hush, the whisper, the gentle conviction is its own proof. So many of us spend so much time barreling up our chests and walking through life like we're going to knock everything over in order to get to that goal. But you know what happens to the oak tree when it becomes too rigid? That's right. It topples over at the smallest breeze. We had a big pine tree in the back corner of the property. Huge. There's another one back there. I guess they were siblings. And these are big trees, and the one started to become very rigid, lost its needles, started to dry out. And we had a little windstorm. Not too bad. Walked outside, and there she lay, toppled over onto the ground. She's now the decorative mulch that you see around the property. Don't be decorative mulch. Be the tree that is still producing oxygen for others to breathe, that is still siphoning out the toxins and making good use of them. That's empowering life. That's receiving and giving, not just lying around in a decorative manner. And we wonder why we're not happy. Because a lot of the time we're more concerned with the decoration than we are with the sustenance of life. But silence brings us to the sustenance. Silence brings us into the moment of knowing the truth of this life, the truth of ourself, the truth. Silence empowers us by nourishing us. It feeds us. It builds us up from the inside. It allows us to be present for others without taking ownership over their stuff, over their path. We can support our friends, our family, our neighbors, strangers, people we haven't met yet. We can support them. 100% we can, without taking over their journey. And silence gives us the resiliency and the strength to see and recognize that. That's spirituality. Spirituality is being so fully present in your own life that you see and appreciate the moments of stillness as well as the moments of movement. That you recognize the decorative aspect of just being alive, and so you embrace that and recognize that you don't have to go for the artificial. You can be with what's real, because there's nothing more beautiful. There's nothing more profound. There's nothing more honest or true than you, exactly as you are. You're in this world not to become something else, but to find out who you already are. That's it. And there's nothing wrong with you that you need to hide so eloquently from. There's nothing wrong with you. As a matter of fact, everything is right with you. Everything is right and ripe. Ripe for the involution to open up to an even deeper truth about yourself. One that is already there and quietly waiting for the moment that you accept it. I saw this little quick ad. I'm not really sure what they were selling. Well, I guess I am. But it was some actress. I can't remember her name. But a very young, she's got to be like in her 30s, I guess, early 30s. Very, thin shape, very tone. And the person that she's sitting with is using some kind of a roller on her neck. And my thought is that it probably had something to do with youthful appearance. And I thought, how deceiving That would be like me going to a 17-year-old or a 20-year-old and saying, you need to look a little younger. And then expecting the 40, 50, 60, 70, 80-year-old to buy it. It's so deceptive. When this person just needs to be with who they are. And the person that's being targeted by that ad just needs to be with who they are. And to recognize that there's beauty. There's appropriateness. That you're fine just the way you are. If you need to be a little healthier, then be a little healthier. But you don't need to push this up, pull that back. Tuck this, pinch that. Hide even more in more creative and amazingly painful ways that are not reversible. No. It took me years. And I don't know, I'm probably not there yet either. But to accept myself exactly as I am, like to be okay with it, I've had children, I've got the baby belly. And I don't remember what it was that I read, but I read something somewhere about a woman's reflections on her own body. And she was talking about some scars that she had, I think it was due to a fire. And she did this just beautiful self-reflection that said, I earned these scars. I could have died in that fire, but I didn't. I fought for my life. And every one of these scars is evidence of that fight, is evidence of that will to live, is evidence that I exist. And it touched me so profoundly and so deeply that I said, I'm never going to complain about my baby belly ever again. My goodness, no. And I started to apologize to her. I'm sorry for all the mean things I've said about you. I'm sorry for not liking you. I'm sorry for all those hours at the gym trying to get rid of you. Only to have her come back in full force. Because the truth will not be denied. Nope. We can cover it up for a little while, but inevitably it will sprout back up again in ways that we can't even imagine. So why not just spend the time learning how to be present with the truth of who we are in this very moment, embracing ourselves, no matter what age or phase we're in, embracing the inner silence, embracing the beauty, and learning how to be resilient with that. Because that's where the happiness is. The happiness exists where we stop fighting what is not able to be fought. The happiness exists sometimes in not fighting that which can be fought, but doesn't need to be. Happiness exists in acceptance, in appreciation and gratitude. And the greatest place where we can find that is in the silence, where we can really spend the time to sit with it and to be next to it, to be part of it, and to be open to it. Hidden until blooming. A lot of you know I do a lot of writing. I typically post something almost every day, and I have a few books of poetry and reflections, and there's another one coming. And as I was writing this poem, it wasn't titled Hidden Until Blooming. It was titled something else, and then as I was writing it, and then when I went back and read it again, I thought, oh, it's Hidden Until Blooming, all right. And that'll be the name of the next book, too. Because it's a book on grief. And not just the grief of losing a loved one, but the grief that we experience every day in life. The grief of not measuring up. The grief of our perception of ourself at any given moment in time, the grief of too much noise and not enough silence, the grief of hiding and actually trying to suppress our blooming. If you had flowers in your garden, would you try to suppress them from blossoming? No, of course not. So then the question becomes, why are you working so hard to suppress your own blossoming? Just because you don't know what that blossom is going to look like. You don't know what the blossom in the garden is going to look like either. Could be a big yellow chrysanthemum. Could be one of those flowers that only kind of blooms halfway. You ever have one of those? No. It's the diversity of all the flowers that makes the garden so beautiful. Not because they're all the exact same. It's the diversity that brings about the wonder and the beauty. And you are diverse. With exactly as you are. You're part of that garden. And you do have a level of responsibility in this life to embrace that. To embrace that diversity. Because if you don't, then the message that you're putting out into the world is that no one else should either. And then we find ourselves exactly where we are, in a world where there are advertisements telling us how horribly we need to change, and for all the wrong reasons. When the reality is we don't need to change anything about this body, anything about this life. What we need to do is embrace a deeper truth that already exists, that's been covered over by all the decorative stuff. Isn't that change? Not really. Not really. It's being with what is, already there. So we had a beautiful silent retreat this weekend. And inevitably, at least my hope is that, some of you had epiphanies like that. Some of you had moments where you were like, wow, I typically cover up so much on a day-to-day basis with language, with words, with distractions. And maybe I don't need to. Maybe moving forward I can say less, be present more, listen more consciously, have eyes open to the process of being alive and to the process of blossoming. Maybe I don't need to hide so much from myself or from others. Maybe I can come out from under that blanket a little more often and walk through the world in a more profoundly authentic way. See, the word authenticity is really interesting because it's a sexy word. For sure. I'm authentic. What's that mean? The t-shirt don't make you authentic. Saying it doesn't make you authentic. Liking the sound of the word doesn't make you authentic. Going out and buying the latest Lululemon outfit or LuLaRoe outfit or any of the Lus. There's so many of them. Having some external piece of decoration that makes you feel cool isn't authentic. Having the latest chakra jewelry isn't authentic. Wearing sacred geometry isn't authentic. Reading the latest spiritual woohoo book isn't authentic. Even attending a silent retreat isn't authentic. What is authentic is coming closer to yourself. Taking your head out from under the blankets and being you. Not being afraid of the inner stillness, the inner silence, the inner noise. Not being afraid of the tendency to want to hide, but also not hiding. That's authenticity. Exploring who you are already and allowing that person to be present in this world and in this life, which is what you're meant to do and what I'm meant to do. We're just meant to be here to support ourselves and to support each other without the facade, without the hiding. So what I'd like to do is go around to our retreat attendees who have officially been released from their vow of silence for the weekend. Show of hands, how many of you still really don't want to say anything? Right? Isn't that beautiful? You know inevitably you will eventually. You don't have to say anything now either if you do not wish to. But if you have one or two very short reflections, because we have a lot of you, we'll start on this side of the room and we'll work the back row and then we'll come to the front row. And if our retreat attendees or anyone would like to say very short reflection, please feel free. And if you don't wish to, you can pass.
I think being okay with being silent and not being under so much pressure to speak.
Yeah.
Being okay with that.
Wonderful.
I would like to say honor to the silence because it's like so beautiful, to the God, to all of you here. Because if you are not here, I cannot experience what I experience here. I'm really thankful. And I would like to share something from the morning meditation. I started to feel discomfort in the meditation, and then my mind was telling me leave. Because, I heard if you something, if you don't feel like with some situation or something, you can leave, right? And actually, something else was telling me from my inside. No, deal with that. Try to figure out, this is probably, it's a gift. Deal with it, try to figure out, try to have a solution. Instead, run away. It's mean, I ask for help from inside, and what was so powerful, the help was given, and I started feeling very confident, and I figured out this is something that I have to do in my life if I deal with some situation what bring me discomfort. Instead of maybe running away, stand up for that, and because I cannot use the voice, I ask from my inner self. And actually the help was gifted. This was really, now I start to feel very gratitude to what was happening, because I can use that now for this one giving memory, I can use that in my life. Thank you to all of you, thank you very much.
Thank you. Very beautiful.
To accept myself as an integrated person, and I don't need to hide that from myself. That's what I got. I'm just grateful. Thank you.
You're very welcome. You will all always have this experience to share. You'll never be alone in your silence. These souls will always be with you to keep you company and to walk that journey with you when you need them. Yeah, absolutely.
On a negative note, we didn't get to know each other very well. But on a positive note, I think I've gotten to know myself a little bit better.
Mm.
Like I said last night, it was a very introverted experience.
Yeah. And my suggestion would be that you've actually gotten to know each other quite intimately. You've gotten to know each other in a way that no one else has ever gotten to know you. Ever. You've shown a part of yourself to each other that you have never shown to someone else. And that's a beautiful showing. But yes, it is also extremely introspective. And the beautiful part of silence is that you're all just holding space for each other. I mean, imagine a world where that was the practice. Yeah.
Friday night, when we opened with silence, you had said something about listening for the space between. And since I had the silence, I could not only just hear the space between, but see it as well. So that was a revelation. And yesterday you asked where we were on our personal time to think what we would want the world to know about us. And what came to me was, and it came around with this, like you said, we know each other in a more profound way. It's like I feel like I see you and I love you. And that's what I want to share with you.
That's quite beautiful. Thank you.
This was really hard. I don't know what I'm crying about, honestly. It was like, I didn't like, but in a good way. I wanted to leave a lot of times too, and I felt really homesick to my two little kids. But,
Yeah.
with all the noise of little kids and the family, you lose yourself, Sure, taking care of people day. So I realized that I needed to set boundaries and be with myself and hold space, because that's all I want from other people in my life is for them to hold space for me and feel seen, but I don't do that for myself.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you.
Of course, absolutely. And remember that the way you treat yourself is how you're educating other people to treat you. The way you treat yourself. And it's so human to want to leave. It really is. To be like, after 5 minutes, I've got to find a way to get out of here. And sometimes people do. Sometimes they do, and it's okay. Inevitably, they come back. But just know that that's so human, because it's easier to hide. It's easier to hide. It really is. It doesn't require anything of you to stay under the blanket, but it requires everything of you to come out and to be you. And sometimes it's like, if you've ever gone on a blind date, maybe, right? Or, your friend sets you up with someone and you're like, I don't want to go. I don't know this person. They might be a jerk. They might have a mole with a hair growing out of it on their nose. You just don't know. So you start telling yourself all these stories. It's the same thing. You just went on a blind date with yourself, you know? Yeah. Only what you found is that you don't have a mole with a hair grown out of it, and you're pretty okay just the way you are. And now you know that that's something worth investigating. Absolutely. There's no person in this world that is more important to be intimate with than yourself. Because you can't truly be intimate with anyone else until you are. Until you know you. Yeah, so I'm happy for you. And I thank you for your honesty. Sometimes people feel a little hesitant to acknowledge the difficulty. It ain't easy. If it was easy, everybody'd be doing it. Totally. They wouldn't just wear it on a t-shirt, right? They'd actually follow through. So it's not easy. So give yourself a lot of credit for staying. Yeah.
I've done a lot of ceremony over the years, but it doesn't get any easier to start or to keep going. I always know that if I'm hesitant to go, if I'm trying to make excuses, if I want to go home, I'm in the right place for where I need to be right now. Two important things came this weekend, and one is how much I resist obedience. And that's to the still small voice, to the thing that's best for me, to the thing that's most important for me to do, to the best of myself. I resist it because there's bliss there, and sometimes I feel that I'm not worthy of that there's arrogance there, and sometimes I feel like I've done so much work that I shouldn't have to anymore, but that's the way it is. And the other piece was how tempting it is to go directly to the sacred and bypass all the feelings and the pathways to get there. And how it reminded me of the same thing you said, when you've got the little kid all distracting you and this work you have to do and all of those things, it's easy to forget how simple it is to be in the sacred in that moment just by kindness and love to yourself and those boundaries you were talking about.
Absolutely. And there's so much in what you just said, completely. You know, the sacred doesn't exist over there somewhere. Yeah. The sacred is here and now, in this moment, no matter what it brings to you. And this whole concept of spiritual bypassing is a real interesting one. Oh, it's so amusing. You know, it's like, of course there's spiritual bypassing. It's when you wear the t-shirt. But don't practice the practice. You know? I love, what is his name? Jamie somebody or another. He's got long red hair and he does like all these crazy spiritual videos that are not really, but they, you know. It's like, you know, what is it? Who? Yes, absolutely. And I just saw one by him the other day, which was like, why it's spiritually necessary to be passive-aggressive in your relationships. And he's got this girl who's doing this with him now, you know. And is that his wife? Yeah. Oh, they're so good together. And she's like, every time you tell me I'm not good enough, I just know how much more of a perfect teacher for me you are, you know? And it's just so good, you know. It's just so good. Spiritual bypassing is flaking off the self-responsibility to do the work. Yeah. And accepting someone else's definition of you as the truth. So if you don't want to be a bypasser, then stay in your own lane and do your own work. And be silent every day for how many minutes? 2 or 4 or 6 or 8 or however old you are, times how much you need it. But really just 2 minutes a day. 2 minutes a day is better for you than 1 hour of relaxing music. I find that to be mind-blowing. Like, yeah, 2 minutes a day. So that means that 1 hour of silence a day is like listening to 30 hours of relaxing music. Somebody go get Anya. or whoever else it is, 1 hour a day has that much benefit for you. And for me. Yeah, it's powerful. And it's really the only place where you're really going to meet yourself right now. The meeting of yourself won't happen elsewhere. It won't happen in the craziness of life because the skill isn't there for it to happen. We say, well, I'll get to it later, or, I know who I am. No, you know who you think you are. But coming into contact, into connection with who you really are, requires silence, because very few people have the skill to be present to their true self while in the midst of distraction. So you got to come to silence. You have to.
Perfect segue, because what you just said is exactly my biggest lesson, in that it's the silence that allowed me to confront my fear of vulnerability. I know I don't allow myself to be vulnerable because it will show my true self when I allow myself to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And so I put up a lot of veils to try not to go there. And in the silence, I couldn't. It had to come through. And that was really perfect for me.
I'm so happy for you. Absolutely. So happy. Vulnerable is not a negative state. It's the state where we're broken open in a way that is so profound, So profound. Sometimes we get broken and we just think we're broken, right? Sometimes we break a little because someone loves us really well, or somebody shows us tenderness, and it touches us deeply, but then we put a Band-Aid over it. We say, well, keep that light from shining. But in those moments, when you're conducive to the breaking open, and then you're conducive to letting that light of vulnerability shine, that's powerful. That's powerful. That's a level of fear being overwritten for sure. Yeah. Otherwise, we walk around looking like a bunch of mummies. I'm just visualizing everybody in this room and all the bandages that we put over all the little broken spots where light could be shining through. And it's like, yeah. So true and beautiful. Thank you. Yeah.
I wasn't here this weekend with all of you, but I know it was very special. And I could spend time here, and I cherish that time. And I'm so proud of everybody for being here, staying here, and don't, just everything that we've shared here is so powerful. You're not alone. And that we have the ability to, to get support and grow and learn. I'm grateful to be with all of you today.
We're grateful to have you here.
I'd like to thank you all for sharing this weekend. And thank you, everyone here who guided this community.
Absolutely.
I said that I wanted to declutter, and I felt that my mind was racing, and I don't know that I achieved that so much. But I worked towards it, and I found that there's so many ways we can really connect to. And I felt today to begin to see that we all have different places. We all may be trying to get to the same place. I'm not sure. But by slowing down, I think that's a huge lesson to take in every human life. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I thought it was super transformative. When I came, the first practices that we did, I was, restless, a little like, crazy notions. But like this morning, I was to a place and you were saying, don't pat yourself on the back or beat yourself up. So I was really working to just be. And in the just being, the stillness came, joy came, the calmness came. And a lot of Dro's directions were really nice there. It was see and then experience and then dissolve. See, experience, dissolve. And that's how we can do our whole life. The other thing that was transformative was that it's going to help me so much with my relationships. Like with myself first, for sure. But then to be able to hold space by just listening. I have a partner who wants to be heard a lot. And I've been told by him that I don't listen a lot. And I think I'm listening. But I think that this can be a lot of practice to do better at that. One thing you said too was about sanctuary. We have the option of sanctuary or telling our story. And that is clear in my head. It's like, let's come to a place of stillness. Sanctuary reminds me of a little secret garden, a little special place where we can go. Or we can be like telling our story all the time of why you did me wrong, or why I'm feeling this emotion. It doesn't have to do with me. It has to do with all the situation around me, and instead of looking inward and going, what is it really? I think that's powerful. And Swamini Ji, they used to say that, and thank you so much, and to all the wonderful music and chat and things like that. Nice weekend, and all the wonderful friends of mine who joined me from Newark, Delaware.
Yes, absolutely. So many of you.
Me.
Yeah. Thank you all for coming. Did everyone from the retreat have at least one chance to say something?
I do.
Yeah.
Get us all together.
Absolutely.
And I live or live by the statement that everything happens for a reason. I haven't been practicing lately with Christy, but I saw the imagery and something drove me to come. It's been a very rough year. And that everything that happens for a reason is this. People sharing in a silent way what we all need. Acceptance.
You're so welcome. But thank you, because you're the one that has to show up to that, and you have. You're the one that has to show up to that, and you have. And thank you for that. Absolutely. Yeah. Somebody over here had their hand up. Did you?
I had experience also with people who keep talking a lot to me, I almost feel I'm a tree and they want to share everything from their life. And it was very overwhelming for me. And I don't want to be rude because it's like my client. But I felt this one actually taking my energy away. I felt almost sick, around my stomach. And then I didn't know how to deal with that. And I know I didn't want to be rude. I almost tried almost say shut up, I'm just enough, But I know in my profession I cannot do that. As I tried to figure out how I can deal with this, and then I was in some course in California
Course?
energy healing. And then I actually, they was talking about the people who are pushers, they're pushing their energy at you because they need to figure out. I almost realized yesterday I was laughing when, or maybe 2 days ago, when you say, if you start to talking, don't feel like the verbal diarrhea. I was like, yes. This is exactly what I came, was. And then I was thinking how we can deal with that. the earplugs in my, just like kind of, acting that like I'm with you, or I don't know what to do, and then in the course, it was telling me that energy, if you feel it's coming to you, instead be like you put a barrier, right? Those will make your intention, like in you also, and you just wish, I hope that stop after like, not like hour, I hope it's like gone soon, and you kind of fighting through. I figured out if you mentally let go that energy, like maybe step aside, instead be like a body to the person, step aside and let go that like a river, let go, and then I started doing that, and then my students started turning with me. I was turning, and then I like let go the river, and in that moment I felt such a peace, and then whatever he can keep talking, I cannot change him, right? He kept talking, and I've been smiling right now. I feel like I'm in peace with that. It's just that energy flow.
You don't have to absorb it in yourself.
No, I don't need to absorb, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't belong to you. Remember, we talked about that this morning. Part of this process of being silent opens us up to understanding what belongs to us and what doesn't. And it can be something as simple as, you're in a posture, a tabletop posture, and you have a little tweak in your knee. Does that really belong to you? It belongs to you if you keep it. But if you know what your adaptation is, to put a blanket under your knees or to reshift your weight, and then it's gone. So it actually was never yours. And that's most things in life. Most things in life are positioning. Most things in life are how you're posturing yourself. And what you'll find is that whatever causes you discomfort, if you reposture yourself to be facing the truth, most things will dissolve. Most things will dissolve because most things don't belong to you. The only thing that belongs to you is you. Period. Yeah. Would you like to say anything?
I think that when you were speaking earlier about us being perfect where we are, accepting ourselves, so that wasn't an endorsement of face yoga, right?
No.
We become who we're supposed to come, and we're here. And
there's a beautiful statement, and I really wish I knew who said it. I think it was Einstein. I believe it was Einstein. It might have been Jung, but he said something to the effect of, there's no such thing as invention. There is only innovation. And this comes from the Upanishads, because everything that will ever be already exists. You're already who you're meant to be. It's just that the part of you that you're choosing to show is not complete in that picture. There's parts of yourself that you're keeping stuffed and choosing to show certain parts over others. It's not that the other parts don't exist. They're already there because everything that can be already is. Does that make sense? And so what you're doing is you're innovating. You're saying, well, let's see. This week, I like a little blue in my hair. And then next week it might be a little green. Right? So you're innovating with what already is. In personality, it's like, well, this week I think I'm going to hide. I think I'm going to have a little more anger. I think I'm going to have a little more doubt, a little more defeat. This week, I think I'm going to have a little more compassion. I think I'm going to have a little more love, a little more of this or that. I'm going to kind of try that on and see what it feels like. And you tell yourself you're taking that in from someplace outside of you, but you're not. All of those across the entire scheme, from extreme to extreme, are already within you. The potential for them already exists. And yes, the potential for darkness is there. The potential for light is too. And as a matter of fact, the potential for light is so strong, so much stronger. But the potential for the darkness, for the doubt, for the frustration, for the anger, for this, for that, for the resentment, for the regret, for the aggression, is more often what we play on, so we're more comfortable with it. The ultimate potential for anger and hate is that it evolves itself into a truer form of energy, which is love. The potential of lack of faith is that it evolves itself into a truer expression of who you really are, which is faith. Everything's truest potential goes toward the light, and in the midst of light, nothing else can exist, because light is a high, high frequency that burns away all toxicity. Does that make sense? But that doesn't mean that these other things are fake. They're not fake. They're just not complete. They're not complete. When they're complete, they'll become one with the truth. And in the light of the truth, anger can't be angry. It has to evolve itself. Yeah. Would anybody else like to reflect who hasn't already? Yeah?
I don't know who I am.
Welcome to the club. Look around you. Who in here knows who they are? Oh, look at that. Nobody raised their hands. I love that you said that. Yeah. Yeah.
I started a new job,
Mm-hmm.
and it's hard to be you. And the who am I becomes more apparent.
Mm-hmm.
The two persons that I supervise, I can feel their rejection of me. From a simple, I say good morning and not getting a good morning.
Mm-hmm.
Have a good evening in their silence. So I was dealing with those emotions and with other things. So I think the message today that when you said about how a child, is, and how the little things of just the sunshine outside makes them feel that bliss.
Mm-hmm.
You just touched my heart.
Yeah. And you can't help what other people receive or deny. There's just no way, bless you. There's no way to control that. All that we can control is how we respond and react to that, And it's kind of interesting that we'll oftentimes say, well, if I try to be, good, happy, joyful, I don't know who I am there. But we also don't know who we are angry, because we don't know how far our anger will take us. We don't know what we're capable of in either direction. And so why not invest in the direction that's healthier? Why not invest in the direction that has the potential to bring more happiness and more peace and more of what we say we're looking for? You ask anybody what they're looking for, and they say, I'm looking for happiness. Well, turn that way. Don't go this way. The gossip isn't going to make you happy. The anger isn't going to make you happy. The pissed offedness at everything that's going on isn't going to make you happy. The redundancy isn't going to make you happy. The repetitive insults to self and others isn't going to make you happy. So stop doing it. Just stop doing it. And instead, work in the other direction. I was in previous life a researcher. And we, scientists are known for repeating their experiments. But once you find that your experiment doesn't work, you stop repeating it. Yeah. So if you know that those things don't make you happy, stop the experiment and go the other way. And like they say, kill them with kindness, man. Just be like, such a great job today. My husband said this one time. He said, we were talking about how, I guess it was my son was constantly getting in trouble and I was losing my patience with him. love you, Jay, if you're listening. He said, my mother did this thing one time where I would go to the store to get a loaf of bread, and I would take forever because I'd be dilly-dallying along the way. He said, but I would come back inevitably with the wrong bread and having lost some of the change. And she would ultimately always say the same thing. Thank you so much for going to the store. I can't believe you made it back so quickly. Well done. He said she always had some praise, even if the praise wasn't completely valid. She always had some praise. And then he said, and then he broke a mirror. His mom had this little handheld mirror that a lot of women, in that day would have. And I don't know, we don't really see so many of those anymore. But he was doing something, it fell and it broke. And he went and buried it in the backyard. And his mom asked him, have you seen my mirror? And he felt so bad about that mirror that eventually he fessed up about it. And her words were, I'm just so glad you told me the truth. I'm just so glad you told me the truth. And so always looking and always, don't worry about how something impacts you so much. Like, they don't say hello to me. It's very human. We all want to be said hello to. We all want to be acknowledged. Don't worry so much about that. The reason why they're behaving the way they're behaving is because they're suffering. On some level, shape, or form, they're suffering, and you happen to be an easy outlet. So don't worry about what you're receiving from the relationship. Just think about the alleviation of suffering around from end to end. How can you present yourself in a way that alleviates suffering, and also that does not take on something you don't own, right? That's key. Yeah. So in which case, they don't want to say good morning to you, they don't have to. However, you can still say good morning to them, and you can still be kind, and you can still be good-natured and good-hearted, and you don't have to take it personally that someone else is suffering. Their suffering doesn't belong to you. Yeah. Would anybody else like to say? Yes.
I wasn't going to share, but I want to say I felt like leaving so many times, and I actually was sitting outside of your door yesterday because I wanted to come home. And then that's when you came up to me and gave me a hug. And I just realized that it's okay to maybe not want to be dealing with whatever was happening. And I've always known I'm very hard on myself. I am downright abusive to myself. And it was just to the point of I felt like I was trapped and I needed something to distract me. It just was so overwhelming. And I just wanted you to know that I was very afraid to share that because I was afraid, and I'm afraid to say what I'm going to say. But yesterday when you said that maybe you're finding joy in the silence, and I thought I'm not. But now I feel like I'm talking, but I don't want to talk. Like I'm finally coming to where it's like now I have to talk, and I kind of am getting used to it. But I thought, why am I not finding this joy that she's speaking of?
The other thing that I said was, or maybe you have to cry first.
Yes, and I cried a lot.
And maybe that's going to last a while.
But I am going to take from this trying to practice self-silence every day.
Yeah.
And really stick to that and just be with that uncomfortableness and not try.
And don't look for the joy. Don't look for it. Don't say to yourself, I got to find the joy. There's something wrong with me if I'm not finding the joy. Where's the joy? Sudha said there'd be joy. No, I also said there would be tears. I also said, or you may need to cry first. Because, you can't, it's not really possible to go from suffering 100% to I'm healed. No. You got to go process. You got to process. You have to, the crying is necessary. You know, I love in Buddhism the concept of emptiness is a little bit different than it is in Hinduism. Emptiness is nothing. Period. They're just so positive. In Buddhism, emptiness is nada. It's like the deep down suffering. It's nothingness. It's like, I'm nothing. I'm nothing. I'm absolutely nothing. And then a true surrender to that, which involves a lot of kicking, screaming, and tears, a true surrender to that nothingness then opens you up to nothing. But the journey is hellish. The journey is not fun. The journey is like being on a constantly going down and around that dangerous bend roller coaster with no reprieve. And there have to be tears, and there's got to be this tenderizing, because without that, there can't be surrender. That's the difference between spiritual bypassing and doing your work. Right? Spiritual bypassing is, I sat with my eyes closed for 2 minutes. I've got the answers. I'm done. That's it. I'll tell everybody how to fix themselves now. Yeah, right? It's so true. My goodness. A lifetime in meditation does not make one healed. Nope. So cry. And when you take those 2 minutes minimum daily of silence, go into it knowing that the crying may happen and embrace that. Embrace that, because it's in embracing the tears that the joy will come. But don't look for the joy. Just allow it to show up when you're good and ready. Because it won't until then. Until then, there may be satisfaction. There may be a sense of, oh, I got this down today. Then remind yourself, don't pat myself on the back and don't judge myself. Because this too is going to change. Today may be a great experience. Tomorrow is going to be not. It's just always going to change. And no matter how long you've been doing this, it's always going to change depending upon what part of you is ready to be opened, what part of you is ready to be tenderized and surrendered. And we're really strange because it would just be so quick and easy if we would just put our entire self, body, mind, and spirit, into that little offering plate on the altar and say, just take all of me. But we don't. We put like a fingernail or a hand or a shoulder or a tear or one experience. And bits and pieces is a long road to walk when it comes to surrender. And it's not just that we put one experience, we put one part of one experience. We say, here, you can have this part. And it's a long road. So have patience with yourself. And allow yourself to feel crappy. Because inevitably you will. That's how you know you're doing your work. Right? You know when it's not easy, but you're doing it anyway. You know when it's like, I don't want to show up, I want to go home, but you stay anyway. It's like when you're like, where's the freaking joy? And you cry anyway. And then inevitably, eventually, you find a little kind of a interesting joy, relief, maybe, in allowing yourself that. Yeah. Thank you for your sharing. Yes.
Thought you were looking that way first.
No.
A big thing that is coming to my mind right now is, and something that I've been really harnessing more so within the last year and a half, is self-reliability.
Mm-hmm.
And the journey to true self-love and, finding myself
trying to figure out who I am. And I think the biggest thing that I've attached to in a good way this last year and a half, around the struggles that I have, is when I'm going through something, when I'm going through an emotion, I allow myself to go through it. I will allow people that'll come up to me and like want to know what's going on, and sometimes I'll get frustrated because I'll be like, well, I can't really explain this to you because there's just no possible way that you will understand, and my emotions are so deep that I don't even know that I have the words to really fully be able to. And there'll be times where I will get myself in situations where I'll feel like I'm forced to. And so I've been learning to get myself out of the situations and just know when I don't need to talk to anyone. I just need to talk to myself. And I need to just be within myself and feel my feelings. And then what always ends up happening is my self-love grows and grows and grows and grows. And it's just no one else is going to love you as much as you love you, because no one else knows your life like you know your life.
That's right.
Not even your mother, not even your father, not even your spouse.
That's right. Absolutely.
So, I don't know. I did recently also lose my husband. On same year this year. Or we first said it in the beginning of the weekend. That's when I got really choked up and it hit me, and then I just been kind of going through it. But I'm just feeling like a really strong connection as far as that goes.
Yeah.
And we're young. We were 30-30. So having to now love myself without him, because he was the only person that actually truly did know me better than my mom. And so
My heart is with you. And you will find that love is all around you. Just remain open to it. And people will come to know you in unique ways. Maybe not the same way that he did, but in ways that are useful for your healing and theirs, and that are genuine and full of compassion. And it never goes away. So don't look for it to. Grief is a celebration of love, as long as it doesn't stop you from living. So allow yourself to grieve and allow yourself to recognize the way life has changed, and then allow yourself to get up and continue anyway. It's powerful. And when you don't want to express what you're feeling right now, you have the right to say, I am not ready to talk about it. You don't have to say any more than that, and you don't even have to say that. But if somebody comes to you and says, what's wrong? What's going on with you today? I'm not ready to talk about it right now. Just not. Period. Anything more than that is inviting conversation and further justification, and you don't need to be justified to stand on your own 2 feet and in your own heart. You just don't. Yeah. And if you ever want to sit down and talk about your loss, I'm here. Yeah.
And I just want to say one more thing. Vulnerability. My husband actually always said vulnerability and weakness are not the same, and they shouldn't be treated as such.
That's right.
It was one of his biggest quotes. I had a little book that I lost it. So I just wanted to.
It's a wise man. A wise man. You can make that into a T-shirt, but you must also practice it. But you must also practice it. Right. Anybody else have anything they'd like to say or reflect on? And I can't see hands in the back row, so Jeff.
Sure. I'm very happy that I made it. When I first walked in the door and I was met by a guy that was doing music, he says, "It's silent retreat." I thought about leaving. And I'm glad I stayed because it's good to be around a lot of feminine energy today and a lot of sharing from the heart. Because, that's the hardest path, from the head to the heart. A lot of people don't want to go there.
Yeah.
And, we want to do other things and go take all these detours from the path that we're meant to be on. But we eventually find our way back. And, just for, where I was a week ago, I went to visit my friend in the hospital. He was hooked up on a ventilator. And I'm like, well, we have to go, do a celebration of life. I'm going to the negative right away, rather than the healing. Then I did some prayer, meditated with him, in the room, and just laying of hands just felt like, sharing energy, is a healing part. And 2 days later, I come in, he's sitting up in bed having French toast. I'm like, never underestimate another person's path. But it's not for us to judge where they're to be on their path. So hearing a lot today about, I ran into somebody who I never saw a side of this person yesterday. And I was taken back, and I just felt like this aggression, being assertive and just anger. And it's like I deflected it, like, you're going to throw me the ball, I'm not catching it. Like, I just kind of be cordial to the best of my ability. But really disturbed, I carried it last night, and this morning, and I said, I know where I need to be. This is where I needed to be today. And gentle yoga is great. I'm going to be getting back surgery the day after Christmas. So I have to prepare my mind for what's going to be happening in that transition.
Mm-hmm.
Not just so much the body, but mental preparation.
Yeah.
Very important. Get my mind strong. Because with a strong mind, I can just do about anything. So, just learn to be humble, and who am I to judge? Because I don't want to be that, being judged either.
Mm-hmm.
And then I found, I'll pass with this, I can go on and on, but I had the privilege of watching a friend's dog for about 3 months over summer when they went to California. And it was a surprise, that dog re-entered my life on Friday. And that to make that connection and learn from another being is very important. We can learn from not just the flowers. I love gardening.
Yeah.
And we all bloom at different times. We're not all the same seed.
Agreed. Thank you for sharing. And our prayers are with you for rapid and complete recovery from your surgery, and for anyone who has anything like that coming up. So let's sit tall and close the eyes. Let's take a nice breath in, a nice breath out. Just take a moment to connect with the inner silence, the inner stillness, the peace within. In the yoga tradition, we say Om Shanti 3 times. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. And what that translates to is, may there be peace in this body and mind. May there be peace on this earth. And may there be peace in the heavens. May there be peace. Placing the right hand on the heart and left hand over the right. Together we'll lift our voices in one beautiful Om. Take a nice breath in. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. May all beings everywhere find peace, love, light, and happiness. May all beings know their oneness. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Namaste. Thank you all so much for being here today. So good to gather with each and every one of you. Some for over the weekend, others just for this morning. So much love to all of our staff for their support of the retreat this weekend. And would love to take a picture. Let's do it. Yay. Do we have a volunteer to take the picture? Of course. Oh, wonderful. We have lots of volunteers.